Hello YouTube, this is Joseph. Sorry for my delay this last couple of weeks. I had an issue with my MacBook. It was just needed some pieces to repair it, so I haven't had access to internet for the last 2 weeks, let alone a computer, so my apologies there. But anyways, here we go. I bring you Breya, Etherium Shaper. Now, she is very much a flexible commander. She has an enter the battlefield ability that brings in 2/1/1 blue Thopter artifact creature tokens with flying, and you can pay 2 mana, sacrifice 2 artifacts, and choose 1. Now this is nice because you can also sacrifice her as the artifact, but she can either do 3 damage to a player, give a creature -4/-4, or gain you 5 life. So she's very utility focused. She's kind of like a miniature Prosh. She gives you tokens, and you can sacrifice the tokens to her to do different things. To partner up with Breya, there are 2 partner commanders I chose for the deck. These are more just there as an alternative commander. Like, sometimes I like to make decks with a few different commanders that can kind of take the helm and be in the general position. So these are my 2 utility ones that I liked. Onto the draw spells. I'm running your classic Skull Clamp, Baleful Strix. I also like that this is specifically an artifact that can be sacrificed, it can be recurred from the discard pile, just gives you good value. Mentor the Meek. A lot of the creatures and the Thopters that are coming into play are 2 power or less, so they can also enable you to draw a card. We have Rhystic Study, Phyrexian Arena, Factor Fiction. Again, it's nice to put some things in your discard pile because you can get them back later. Ancient Excavation is another instant speed drawing ability card. I like it for the basic land cycling, just to fix your mana. That's mostly why it's here, but it's also interesting because one game I played this and I had like 6 cards in my hand, and I drew another 6, and then I was able to sculpt my hand to have basically the perfect cards I needed for that situation, and it actually got me out of quite a bind. So it is nice to be able to dig through your deck. It kind of serves like Factor Fiction, but you get to choose which cards you're discarding. So it's very nice. Now, Sire of Stagnation. It's important to mention that he has Devoid, so he does not have a color, and he can bypass like all to dust and sacrificing all colored permanents because he doesn't have a color. But I mostly have him here just for the card drawing atmosphere of him. We don't have green, and when we're facing off against green decks, they usually have ways to ramp, and they're playing lots of land. So whenever they play a land, we draw 2 cards. It's very nice, and it's a big body. And then Dig Through Time, again, another instant speed draw spell. I wanted them all to be instant speed because all of my removal is instant speed, and it just lets me play a little bit more control in the later part of the game. Now these 3 next cards are not quite card draw, but they kind of are pseudo card draw. So Sphinx of Summoner, Tutors for an artifact creature. Combustible Gearhulk, another one from Kaladesh. I really see him as being a fun card. She kind of gets artifacts from your graveyard back to the battlefield. Just good for recursion. So these are our utility cards. They're just there to do various things. Volcanic Key lets us untap artifacts. It's good just for our like different mana rocks and things. Cranial Plating just can win you the game on the spot, because if you have, I have a total of 40 artifacts, or they produce artifact cards in this deck, so this thing could just make any creature be lethal. Spawning Pit. It's mostly here as a free sack outlet, and it's an artifact. Just the idea that you can sacrifice all your creatures when a board wipe happens, and then you can produce, specifically spawn artifact tokens into play. So, you know, this is a card that just does so much work for you whenever a board wipe happens. Then we have Ethersworn Canonist. You know, we're playing about 50% of our deck being artifacts, so chances are we're not going to be casting more than 1 non-artifact spell in turn, so this mostly just hoses our opponents. Shimmermere lets us play our artifacts at instant speed. Etch Champion, Metalcraft is going to be there. It's going to happen. Having protection from all colors just makes this a good blocker. and potentially a lethal threat if you put cranial plating on them. Ashdon's Altar again, sacrifices creatures and ramps us. Hammer of Perforos gives all our creatures haste, and every once in a while, you know, being able to sacrifice a land to get another enchantment artifact creature that we can later sack to Breya is useful. This just does a lot of work for us. It's an artifact itself, so this gives everything haste and just a good way of utilizing our cards. Master Etherium boosts all of our artifacts by +1/+1 and is just a huge creature when we have lots of creatures in the field. Now, Trading Post is very much a utility card. You know, sometimes we need to gain some life, sometimes we just want another token to put on the field. It acts as a bit of a sack outlet for either our creatures or artifacts, just to gain some card advantage, so it does a lot of things for us. Mirror Turbine, this is one of the key cards I had for running Volcanic Key. This just lets us produce more 1/1 artifact mirror tokens. And every once in a while the second ability is relevant because we have Mirror's Battlesphere on the deck, so we can tutor for him just to get more artifacts. Phyrexian Metamorph, he's there just to be able, as a utility, just copy any artifact or creature on the field. Padim, Council of Innovation, making all of our artifacts have hexproof is very nice. And this couples well with Darksteel Forge that you'll see soon. So if all of our artifacts are hexproof and indestructible, it's really hard to deal with this deck. Scrap Mastery, open the vaults, returns all your artifacts and enchantments from the graveyard to the battlefield for all players. Memnarch, he's just an alternative, it's kind of spot removal win condition. Every once in a while it's relevant to be able to just take control of your opponent's artifacts and then just sack to Breya or whatever, right? So it's very powerful. Magister Sphinx, it's kind of... This deck I was noticing needed a little bit more win conditions, and this is something that can really stop some of these other decks that I often face. Like an Orleo deck will be up at 200 life by like turn 10 easily, so be able to stop some of those life gain decks and various things and reducing them to 10 life can make or break your whole game plan. And then Darksteel Forge, making all of our artifacts indestructible. So the next batch is our token producers. Hangerback Walker, this is more of a newer edition. You know, this thing can just go crazy when you put lots of +1/+1 counters on it and just generates lots of good advantage. Thopter Spy Network, token producing, card draw. It's very similar to Awakening Zone that like my Prosh deck would run. It kind of fills the same slot. Pia and Kieran Naylor enters the battlefield to get 2 colorless Thopters, and it also has the ability to sacrifice artifacts to do damage to people or players. Angel of Innovation. This is another one I really liked just because when it enters the battlefield you get another 2 colorless servo artifacts. I was noticing that a lot of the token producers aren't necessarily artifacts, so specifically I'm looking for artifact producing cards, and it's kind of a tricky thing. So I'm really glad for Kaladesh and just the Fabricate mechanic, and it actually serves really nicely in this deck. And then we have Marionette Master. This is great because you can often just put 3 counters on her and then sacrifice all your artifacts and just do lots of damage to somebody, and it can just win you the game, and it's very versatile. And then Mirror's Battlesphere comes in with 4 1/1 colorless mirror tokens. And then I have Eldrazi Displacer is there to flicker them and kind of just abuse the enter the battlefield mechanic. I'm also running 4 Planeswalkers. We have Duretti. He's there just to put stuff in your graveyard, draw you cards, and he's just good utility. Just a good card to have. Then I have Tether Up the Seeker. It can tutor for your artifacts, specifically artifact lands are really nice to tutor for, or your cranial plating, or skull clamp when you need it. And it can also untap your mana rocks. And that's ultimate once in a while is relevant, especially if you have things like Darksteel Forge out. It just makes all of your artifacts huge. Then I have Venser to flicker enter the battlefield token generators, and also make my creatures unblockable, which can win you the game. And finally, Nicobolus. I mostly like it for the ability to take control of opponent's creature, because often the thing that's stopping my 1/1 flying Thopters is like a big Avacyn or Baneslayer Angel or something on the opposing side of the field, and being able to steal their biggest, best creature and then just win the game with their own creature or something is very nice. For mana rocks, we have Soaring, Solemn Simulacrum, Hedron Archive. Again, I really like Hedron Archive because you can sacrifice it to draw 2 cards. Early game when you need to ramp, it's good. And later when you don't need the ramp, you can just get rid of it to draw cards. That's kind of why I choose this over Thran Dynamo. Then I have Gilded Lotus and Dreamstone Hedron. This again because I can sacrifice it to draw cards. Plain and simple. So I'm only running 5 of specifically dedicated ramps cards, but with Tezzeret and a lot of the card draw that I have, I think it is permissible to only run 5, but that is something that I would highly recommend increasing if you wanted to. Ramp is very important. So now with our removal spells, we have Cyclonic Rift, Rout. I should mention that this one can be played at instant speed, and that's why I chose these 2 board wipes specifically, because you can just instant speed them, and then it works well with all your card draw that you have. This one I really like because it just wipes the board. It resets the playing field a lot of the time, and this can count as your artifact or your creature, so sometimes you want to count this as a creature because you have a really important artifact on the field. Other times you want this to be your artifact because you have another creature or something, so it's just a really powerful card. Merciless Eviction, just because it can exile everything, especially Planeswalkers, and then All is Dust. So I have 5 board wipes. I think 5 is the kind of default amount that I add into my decks. Specifically, I like to have different abilities. So you know how like All the Dust sacrifices, Merciless Eviction exiles them, Rout destroys, Cyclonic Rift returns to their hand, and the other one's like sacrifices as well. So it's just good to have different cards that do different things for various situations. So then we have Path to Exile, Swords to Plowshare, Swan Song, Counterspell, Void Shatter, Anguished Unmaking, Confirmed Suspicions. This one I'm really excited for. One of my close friends gave this a couple booster packs he bought me for my birthday recently, and this was a card that I was actually looking for Breya that I didn't have, and I pulled a foil one from this booster pack, so I'm really thankful for my friend for buying them for me. But it's really cool because he investigates 3 times, meaning that you get 3 artifact clue tokens that can either draw you cards or can be sacrificed to Breya. Then I'm running Duplicant. Again, it's an artifact and you can recur it, so it's great. And then another Gear Hulk. This one enters the battlefield, you can destroy target creature and then gain life equal to it. I'm still looking to get the blue Gear Hulk. I'm forgetting the name right now, but I kind of wanted to run all 4 of them because I just think it has great synergy with Breya and what the deck seeks to do. 3 plains, 3 islands, 4 mountains, 2 swamps. So specifically I chose this pattern because obviously red is a little bit more dominant. I had Kiki Jiki and Restoration Angel in the deck, and they are still cards that I really want to put back in here, but they served a better purpose in a different deck. Madru colors that I was making. So we'll have to see, but Breya needs some tweaking. There's a lot of cards that I want to put in her, I just don't have them yet, so I'm just really researching different options. So we have a few artifact lands. I still need to get the other 2, the red one and the black one. Temple of False God. The land base also needs to be fixed here. I just kind of threw in whatever lands that came into play potentially untapped in this particular color scheme that I had kicking around. So a lot of them are from the pre-con deck, and some of them were just in my binder or from other decks that I didn't necessarily need there. The only lands that really come into play tapped are the temples, because I like the scry ability. I try to keep it mostly to pain lands, buddy lands, and some of the Zendikar lands. Preferably, I would like shock lands and fetch lands in here, but that is not the case yet. So I have a few that tap for 3 colors. Ideally, you don't want any more than 10 land that come into play tapped in any commander deck. So that's just general rule. So Exotic Orchard, Reflecting Pool, and Command can tap for any color. So yeah, I like to have a handful of lands that tap for any color and a handful of basics, usually 9 to 10 for any commander deck. Around 6 utility lands, and then the rest being like dual lands of some sort that come into play, ideally untapped. There you have it. That is my Breya Etherium Shaper deck. I hope you enjoyed this video, and leave comments in the comment section below. I want to hear suggestions for how I can improve this deck. And click the subscribe button. Have a good week.